I want to talk about overtraining and how do you know when you're overtraining, what is it, and my 3 favorite tools that I use to measure my ability to recover, my readiness to train, and my overall autonomic nervous system readiness. So I want to first define like overtraining, like what is it? So generally, I tend to think overtraining, I first look at Hans-Seyle's general adaptation syndrome. I'll put something on the screen right now for you. So after we apply resistance, a stress to our body, and let it be known that it doesn't have to be just physical stress, any stress counts towards overall nervous system stress or overall nervous system readiness, no matter if it's sleep, inflammation from food, social stress, physical stress from the gym or training. It could be anything, it all contributes. So basically, after all these stresses add up, we want our body to get back to a level of homeostasis. Think of homeostasis as just being balanced. And at this point, when you apply too much stress to the body and you don't give it the chance or the appropriate opportunity to recover and adapt, then you can fall into the exhaustion stage of GAS, general adaptation syndrome. AKA, all this means is basically you're not going to be optimally ready to perform. Are we ever optimally ready to perform though? Probably not. But going through this exhaustion stage can predispose us to a weakened immune system and I would say significantly lower performance than usual. So basically, you haven't supercompensated, you've kept applying stress to your body and you're wondering why, hey, why am I not performing anymore? Why can't I lift the same weights as I used to? So, now I've got that out of the way, 3 favorite tools to measure, hey, should I adjust my training today? Should I auto-regulate and change it a bit today? I'm not feeling 100%, but am I just being like soft? Or is there something actually going on with my nervous system that I don't know about? First, heart rate, resting heart rate in the morning. What you're gonna do is just measure your pulse. If you have an Apple Watch or something, even better, even more accurate, measure it for 60 seconds and get a resting heart rate for that morning as soon as after you wake up. Before doing anything, before stimulating yourself in any way, before looking at your phone, it's very important you make it the same, similar time, and as similar as possible context and environment around you. And this will help it make this data that you're collecting more reliable and valid, which is very important when you're collecting data. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your resting heart rate across a 1-week span, and then you're going to compare it from week to week, and then you can look on day to day, but day-to-day fluctuations are a bit less accurate because there's a lot of things that can influence day to day, especially your last night's sleep and when you fell asleep. There's so many factors that can influence heart rate. However, you're going to get a more accurate indication of your overall readiness to train by looking at a 1-week block and comparing week to week to week, and then month to month to month, and then mapping that to your training schedule. So that would be the easiest, most cost-effective way to start. Now I'm going to progress and get progressively more accurate, and as you progressively get more cost expensive as well. The next one, a hand grip dynamometer. This is an electronic one. You don't need a fancy electronic one like this. You can just get any grip dynamometer. They're $50 to $100, and they're actually pretty good because they also, grip strength has been correlated to basically basic autonomic function, basic nervous system function, and it gives a general indication, and this is anecdotally as well, as to your readiness to train. So for example, if I get 40 kilos, 50 kilos, whatever, I'm going to try and aim for being within 10% of that figure, if day to day, week to week. If I vary outside of that, about that 10% variation, outside of that number, say I get a 50 kilo grip and my variation steps outside the 5 kilo mark, outside of the 10% variation, then I get a general indication that maybe I'm applying too much stress to my body and my nervous system isn't adapting. And I forgot to mention this before, this applies the same way to the heart rate, the resting heart rate. So you want to stay within that. Maybe with the resting heart rate, give yourself a little more variation, maybe a 10 to 20%. That's what Joe DeFranco likes to recommend, a 10 to 20% variation between resting heart rate that you can give yourself to stay in that balanced zone. But if it goes beyond that, 10 to 20+%, then you know, like, be careful. There might be something you need to change and adjust. You may not be as ready to train as your mind thinks. And it'll also give an indication of like whether you have an illness that that's about to arise, because your autonomic system definitely does change before that. So you'll start to see patterns with that, which will be helpful in just dictating, and learning more things about your body. Third thing, this on my finger, what is it? It's an Oura ring. It measures a whole host of biometrics when I sleep, and one of them includes heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is the time in between heartbeats. And I've read quite a little bit of literature on HRV and its effectiveness to determining your overall readiness to train. This is the most accurate. A lot of professional sporting organizations use heart rate variability, along with a bunch of other subjective and objective measures to determine whether an athlete is in an optimal state to perform. And I'll put some stuff down below as to what I've read and why I've read it. But with HRV, it's quite subjective. It's quite individual. So there's no really one specific HRV number and range that you should be within, and that means you're optimally ready. So it's similar to heart rate. Like, these are general guidelines. So which HRV, if you can measure it, then you have to measure it in relation to yourself. So for example, my HRV sits in between high 50s to 75. And with that number, then I can see a reference range for myself. So then I find I'm starting to see the data now over the weeks, because I've been tracking this for about 3 weeks now. I'm starting to see when I've gotten high quality sleep, and it tracks all my sleep metrics, my breathing, my body temperature, with all the conjunction, with all this data. When I get the highest quality sleep, the most restful sleep, my HRV is a little bit higher, around the 70s range. When I'm applying stress to my body and I'm not getting as much sleep and I'm coming off a training day or a couple training days, my HRV is generally lower. Now, as to why that happens, there's a bunch of different theories as to why that happens. I'm gonna put the links below if you wanna read more, if you're curious. I'm not gonna go into that now. But HRV can be and this ring, this Oura ring, is probably the best thing I'd recommend for measuring your readiness to train and measuring your sleep. Because you could never do this 10 years ago. Now we've got all these great things that we can measure within a little small ring. It's about $300. It's not cheap, but it's an investment. And if you're curious into really optimizing your health and wellness, then you're gonna wanna invest in something like this. However, you can just start with the heart rate, then the grip dynamometer, and then work up to this. There's options for everyone. To conclude, a lot of people have said that there's no such thing as overtraining, and there's only, pretty much for 99% of people, they're just under recovering. And I would tend to lean towards that argument, because most people don't have enough load and volume going through their body on a day-to-day basis, especially physically with their physical training, to warrant technically overtraining. Usually things like sleep, nutrition, hydration, recovery, mobility, breathing, a lot of these boxes aren't ticked. And I'm gonna put down below all the contributing factors that contribute most to this under recovery, overtraining state that people come within and find themselves within. So now in the video, I've covered the measures, how you can measure it. Below, I'm gonna cover the contributing factors that you can change about your lifestyle and just be more aware of to get the most out of your body, so then you don't have to get in a state where you're constantly struggling to overcome plateaus and you're constantly finding yourself run down and getting sick, and all these different factors that can result from all the contributing factors I'm going to put below that I just mentioned. So I hope that's valuable. Jack Simmons, I hope that answer, although it's long, I hope it's valuable for you. You asked the question, so I answered it. If you guys got any questions on this, let me know. I don't purport to have all the answers. These are just what I've found so far that's worked for me and worked for the people I train, and what I've seen in my environment and the world around me that I've learned. I hope it's valuable. I really think this is a very important topic, and that most people aren't getting right, or aren't getting it as right as they could.